Did you know that the Philippines is made up of more than 7,000 islands? So how did they go about ensuring all the tourists who were spread out in these islands were properly taken care of when COVID-19 crisis started? Today I'm talking to Art Boncato, the Undersecretary for Tourism Regulation, Coordination and Resource Generation at the Department of Tourism in the Philippines, on how they made it happen. We'll also discuss with him on the protocols they have put in place now for the different establishments to provide visitor confidence. And why is ensuring that the locals feel safe to travel key to opening up for tourism, both domestic and international? Welcome to CR Talks. In this series of travel readiness conversations, I'll be talking to experts, thought leaders, entrepreneurs, key stakeholders on how destinations and businesses are getting ready to resume tourism after COVID-19. Thanks for watching. I'm Fazal, your host for today.
Hi, Art. Thanks for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you on our show. I know it's tough, difficult times, and you're busy, but even then you gave us some time. We really want to spend some time on understanding how Philippines is opening up, preparing to open up for travel as other destinations are doing, and that's really what I wanted to focus on today. But before that, I know that you have been working from home for the last few months, managing, the tourists who are stranded in Philippines. So tell us about before we get into the opening part, how has it been so far in terms of working from home experience?
Well, work from home, it's the first time I've experienced it. So you just have to do a lot of adjustment right away and adapt, because I think the greater picture is really the problems that we face. So work from home, I guess, made us really more productive. But of course, we have extended hours, and then we can accommodate more meetings now than a regular day, because we don't have to deal with traffic and waiting for people to come, because everything's online, and the thrust now is all online and contactless. And I think these online meetings really do achieve a lot, but also we spend a lot of time working. That's why I think productivity has doubled or tripled the past few months.
But how about personally? There's a lot of studies going on in terms of is there a border between your personal life and work-life balance? It's some say it's difficult to achieve from work from home environment, especially in our Asian context as well.
You're right. You just have to maybe have the discipline to compartmentalize everything in the mind. So and I think it pays that you treat each day as a regular working day, meaning you have to wake up at a certain time of the day and think that you have to go to work, even if it's just like moving a few steps from your room and work. And then you just have to make that discipline, also separating private time with the family, or running errands and things like that. But we're so connected, even if we're not on Zoom, we're in Viber or we're in WhatsApp.
Right, right,
And
right,
the
right.
stronger the internet is, I think the more challenging it is for those who are forever connected. But we
Uh,
manage to adjust to all of those.
Wonderful. So, I mean, you of course have to look after the tourists who are coming who have been there in the Philippines, during the lockdown. How do getting them into the right places, making sure they are okay, they're safe. How do you manage all that from home, getting them on planes and things like that?
I can't even explain that, Fazal. It just has happened. But remember, we're 7,300 plus islands.
Islands,
And then
absolutely.
when the lockdown happened, there were thousands of tourists, both domestic and foreign, stranded in our island. So we had to work through all of our 16 regional offices
Wow.
and have some sort of an account of where they are and where they're headed. So we had to work on immediate sweeper flights out of the regions to Manila, so that they can fly out of Manila to their destinations. But the challenge of doing that was something that really is still something that we still need to appreciate. But that
Okay.
happened. We're able
Okay.
to stage at least 29 flights out of the regions,
Wow.
and help tourists. Our latest count is more than 30,000
Wow.
foreign tourists we have assisted, not only in terms of sweeper flights, but also in terms of looking for them, making sure they're okay, and then if they needed land transfers or sea transfers, or we also extended some food and accommodation vouchers
Right.
to some. So
Okay.
it's really part of the daily accounting, and you must realize that all of them are actually distressed, and
Yes,
so there's a lot
absolutely.
of emotions involved in the process.
Yeah.
But
True.
so about 30,000 plus foreign as of today, and then more than 10,000 domestic as well. But the Philippine situation, I think, is quite unique because we also deal with overseas Filipinos coming
All
home. So
right.
this is a
Yeah.
totally different challenge. Although it's not part of our mandate in the Department of Tourism, we are involved in so many ways because we're dealing with airports, we're dealing with local government units, and the like. So pretty exciting.
The 30,000 are currently in Philippines.
Oh no,
How
they're
is
all
it?
yeah, they're all out of the country already. And I
Okay.
forgot
Okay.
to mention that, of course, the embassies in the Philippines also stage their own sweeper flights,
Okay.
bringing them
Okay.
out of the country, but initially bringing them out of the regions to Manila and then out of the country. But in all of those flights, our department was heavily involved as well because we were in touch with them, and we have people really helping them out, moving from their current location to the airport, because there are a lot of restrictions, not
True.
only imposed by the national government but also by the local government
Local
units. So
governments. Right.
we had to go through and maneuver our way out of those.
Oh, I mean, it's excellent job, I mean, taking care of the tourists who are already there. Great.
Yes, even our secretary of foreign affairs
Mhm.
really thank our secretary, Berna Romulo Puyat, for our job, and he said, the foreign minister said, or the secretary said that all of the embassies have thanked him, that we've really taken
Great.
care well of their nationals,
Great.
especially at this time of crisis.
How, of course, I think, tourism industry has been so badly impacted everywhere. I think Philippines is no different, especially, our industry has so many small to medium enterprises, tour guides. How are you managing with all these, jobs at stake?
Yeah, that's the other part of the many things that we're dealing with. Because, as you know, even the UNWTO has said that 100% of destinations have had different levels of travel restrictions.
Mm,
And of course, the Philippines is not exempt. But
mm,
when you restrict travel, that means like creating a domino effect on all segments of
all
the
segments.
industry. Ultimately, there was a sudden halt
Yeah.
in our operation, so we have to deal with those who are actually, some have lost their jobs, some are
Mm,
still clinging to it, but with uh, different uh, programs or different management
mhm.
of employment by the stakeholders. And but one good thing about maybe the accommodation sector in the Philippines,
Mhm.
because we have also thousands of Filipinos coming home or
Mm.
working abroad,
Right.
would be needing places to stay for quarantine.
All
We're
right.
able to actually reach out to more than 1,200 hotels and
Mhm.
resorts nationwide, with
Okay.
more than 84,000 rooms that have been open since our strict lockdown, to accommodate all of these overseas Filipinos and overseas Filipino workers, and some international or some, yeah, foreign nationals belonging to international organizations or working here in the Philippines. So we're able to at least give them some sort of business. It's
Mm.
very low yield, but
True.
that somehow kept
True.
them afloat
Yeah.
this past few months. For others, the department, of course, under with the directive of our secretary, we formulated the tourism response and recovery program
Mm-hmm.
that has different phases. And the first major phase there is really focused on livelihood opportunities
Okay.
and access to government financial institutions of micro, small, and medium enterprises in terms of low interest or zero interest loans.
Mm-hmm.
And we're also worked closely with the legislature because they have crafted economic stimulus bills,
Okay.
and they have identified the tourism as a beneficiary to those. And actually our plan is anchored on that on those bills to be passed as law, and we are
Okay.
just waiting for that to happen.
That's great. So, in what phase are you now in terms of opening up travel within Philippines and international as well? Are you looking at domestic travel first? We are doing some research, and we are also going to release a report very soon. We realized that Philippines has a pretty big domestic tourism market, actually.
You're right.
Yeah.
And in our plan, the Tourism Response and Recovery Program, there are different phases. Of course, first phase is response, then we expect some sort of recoil, and then some start of the recovery. But the catalyst to tourism is really domestic tourism,
Yeah.
and that is what we are focused on. In 2018, uh, before some figures were corrected by our statistics office, was that there were more than 111 million trips
Yeah.
made by Filipinos
Yeah.
around the country, and
Huge.
that's a
Yeah.
huge contribution to the economy. And there are certain levels of quarantine in the Philippines
Okay.
today, and many of our destinations now are currently on a what we call a modified general community quarantine,
Okay.
and tourism activities are now allowed with 50% operational capacity because we're still making sure that uh, people manage to observe minimum health standards like
Mm-hmm.
physical distancing
Mm-hmm.
and the like. And the control of workforce is one indicator that we're looking at. But eventually, that would lead to what we call the new normal, and
Mm-hmm. Yes.
new normal is what we are looking forward to.
Right. I went through some numbers, and 2018 numbers, I think, which was saying that the domestic market was worth 60 billion US dollars or something, which is
That
huge.
that is correct. So that's a value that we need, that we had, and we would like to, of course, um, have. Definitely not this year,
Yeah.
but as we restart tourism again, like Boracay Island has been
Mm-hmm.
reopened, but initially
Okay.
for travelers within the region first,
Okay.
just to check that all of their protocols are in place, and they really have stringent protocols
Okay.
from the origin of the guest to the arrival at the airport, the transportation, staying in the hotel, and if there are cases, they're really very strict protocols in terms of handling cases.
So in terms, so you're opening up domestic tourism to a certain extent. Are you also looking at opening up? I think I saw somewhere opening up what they call corridors or bubbles.
Correct. And our secretary has been also really focusing on that, looking for areas that you can distinguish as a travel bubble. And the the concept behind this is essentially making sure that when we restart tourism, it happens in a very, despite slow but sure, in terms of ensuring the markets that the environment is safe for all of them.
Yeah.
And that is the message. So looking for the right match for certain destinations is what the Philippines would want to happen as well.
So within ASEAN, are you coordinating with ASEAN regional travel? Because we see that regional travel also has been a huge market within ASEAN. The report that we are releasing in a couple of weeks is ASEAN readiness, travel readiness. And we see that coordination between ASEAN countries will also help in terms of, slowly getting back to some level of normalcy.
Most definitely, our secretary has attended meetings actually with her fellow ministers in ASEAN, and they were talking about the impact, of course, of COVID and what they can do together to move things forward. And our secretary shared that we already had great draft actually issued. The DOT has already, Department of Tourism has already issued new health and safety guidelines when it comes to the different segments of the industry, ranging from accommodation enterprises to tourist transport to restaurants. And what is really coming soon would be for MICE facilities for travel and
Okay.
tours and tour
Yeah.
guides and tourist attractions and island and beach destinations. So every segment we will have a set of protocols for them, and she
Right.
shared that everybody was pleased to hear that from the
Mm.
Philippines and say that we're quite advanced in terms of rolling out those standards.
That's excellent. I think that's excellent. What kind of things that tourists would expect to sort of go through in these SOPs that you're creating? It's you know.
May I share a slide, Fazal,
Yeah,
so
please go
that I
ahead.
can
Please go ahead.
um,
I'm going to
maybe
give
just
you.
allow me to
Yeah.
share?
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Can there?
Yeah.
Okay. Very quickly because I think this would interest you. Do you see the slide now?
Yes, I do see that. Yeah.
Yeah. So like these are the new normal and health safety standards
All right.
guidelines
Okay.
that we have issued, and if you see the last one is I think very related to what
Oh
we'll be
yes.
discussing
Mm.
later.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is going to be part of our rollout as well. So the first three ones we've already rolled out.
Okay.
Coming sooner, the remaining part, and of course we did this doing doing research and
Yeah.
consulting the right organizations. But this one I like to share with you. All of in all of our standards,
Yeah.
we have at least 10 new norms that are recurring. It's
All
and
right.
you are
It's
very
excellent.
very
Yeah.
aware of this. Yeah,
Hmm. Hmm.
it's really from mandatory use of protective gear to contactless transactions. So these are the things that we are really focused on, because the message that we like to put across is that we are very aware and very conscious and deliberate in our effort to make every tourism stakeholder responsible, so
All right.
that we become a safe destination to regain or to gain the trust, no, of this market that has also changed its behavior towards destinations. So this is the main message that we would like to put across.
Well, that's true. So are you having? I know that some countries who are doing similar stuff, they're also having some kind of well, what do you call it, certification, or I'm not sure exact what term they use in terms of these, when certain establishments are following these SOPs, they're given some kind of a certification or accreditation. Is
Yeah,
there something like that that you're
we
looking
we
at?
are we are working on that, but right now because we are still in quarantine
Yeah,
status,
yeah.
the body that is in charge of handling COVID has mandated that uh, t- accommodation enterprises in the Philippines who like to operate during the quarantine would need to have a certificate of authority to operate from the Department of Tourism. That's
Okay,
basically ensuring that before they open, all of the
okay.
standards that we have prescribed are followed. But eventually, the plan of the department is to work on a like clean, like a clean clean certification
Yes,
type
yes. Right,
of
right.
process, and
Yeah.
we are exploring ways on doing that. It's underway,
Okay.
but I just cannot just share details. But
Right,
eventually, it's going to be like some sort of another certification
right.
aside from your accreditation with the department,
Yeah, yeah,
that can form part of another another badge that they can work on.
yeah, yeah. So in Singapore, they have what they call clean SG certificate. That's what they introduced.
That's right. Something,
Yeah,
yeah,
clean SG.
very similar to that.
Right.
It's in the works. As soon as
Okay.
it's ready, we'll let you know.
Okay, good, good. Okay, briefly on the markets that you're looking at. I mean, not now, of course, now we are looking at, travel bubbles and all that. Looking beyond the travel bubbles, what are your thoughts? Are you actually planning for that, or are you too busy with the next 6 months?
Well, What this crisis has really taught us that we have to do things at the same time.
Right.
It's a good thing that of course there's a different group because I'm really primarily in charge of operations and regulation, and there's a group in charge of planning. But of
Yeah.
course we work together, and the focus really is to bring back our primary markets the
Mhm.
soonest time possible. And normalcy is really the end game here.
Right.
Um, well, new normalcy. Yes, some wouldn't want to call it new normal, but some are open to it already. So regardless, what we mean is that it's going to be a scenario that is going to be different from where we were
Mhm.
pre-COVID.
So I saw, the chart that you showed, there was a specific line which said halal, on the halal area. So this is still going to be, I mean, of course, ASEAN, there's a huge Muslim market. So this is now in the main, main strategy of Philippines, that this market,
Yes, in
yes.
fact, I have if I can share again this. Of course, maybe just pass through the slides. Like
Yeah, yeah, no
we're
worries, no worries.
going digital,
Yeah,
contactless in so many ways, in
yeah,
cleaning,
yeah,
transactions, even our greeting.
right,
Instead of shaking hands, we have this traditional way of saying
right, okay.
"mabuhay,"
Abu Hai,
and
yeah,
online learning has been really tremendous for us.
all right.
The
Mm-hmm.
secretary launched it in April. We've
Mm-hmm.
had like from our sector alone, we've had 21 webinars so far, and other attached agencies have had their own. So collectively, we've had overall 1 million viewers and learners in different
Wow,
sessions we have
oh, really?
on a weekly basis. So like from farm tourism to cultural sessions, we've held all of those, and eventually the next phase in our regulation process would be an online accreditation system very soon.
Right.
So
Okay.
this is the only face-to-face transaction would be, of course, getting their original certificate and nothing more than that. But and then this one, I just want to share this one.
All right.
Um, yeah. As I mentioned, aside from those guidelines for hotels, there's a special guideline for Muslim-friendly accommodation establishments. So
Wow. Okay.
it's going to be rolled out nationwide.
Mm-hmm.
But it will teach all of our stakeholders the basics as you
Mm-hmm.
have already done in the past, but you have to continue doing it. And there's
Yeah.
some certain guidelines in terms of handling food, guests, and things like that. So it's going to be part of our new standards to to roll out and eventually regulate. So
That's good.
that is, I
Okay.
think, one piece of good news I'm sharing with
In terms of let's say getting back to the new normal, what, of course, as you said, you're not in the planning phase, but where does the planning people see tourism? Are we, do you think some level of normalcy will come in, let's say in 2021 and 2020 or 2021?
Well, that is the prayer. The
Yeah.
sooner, yeah, the sooner, uh, the better. But as our secretary would say, we really don't know when that comes, but we want to be ready as early as now. That is why the primary objective was to roll out these new protocols, so that when all of a sudden we start reopening our international ports, and people start traveling again, we don't have to worry about how safe they would be. So of course in the planning program that we've set, the rest of 2020 would be like some sort of a recoil,
Mm-hmm.
and then start of 2021 will be start of recovery. So first, and I think the major guidepost there would be uh, discovering the vaccine.
Vaccine. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that would change everything, and I think very quickly as well. Once we have that, I think things will fall into place and start rolling again.
So some of the discussions I have had, Art, is that especially for a destination, I think even if they're open, the biggest worry is, especially for international travel, the biggest worry is the airline sector. Um, so in terms of first, because airlines are probably one of the most impacted ones, will we still have the same level of connections that we used to have? Yeah, connectivity, and of course the pricing issues. So how do have that been part of a big consideration?
Certainly, because we're in touch with the aviation industry, and we already know somehow how it's moving.
Hmm.
And once they start flying again, I'm sure it's not going to be the whole original network right away. And there could be some considerations in terms of cost as well.
Yeah,
But of course, there are regulatory bodies that cover them, and
right,
that can be managed somehow. But I think their success would really depend on the confidence of primarily the locals first. If
right.
the confidence level there in terms of traveling around the country
Mm,
is strong right away, then it will bode well for the future of the it bodes well for the future of the airline industry. Um, but as I see it, they already know that uh, this is going to be a recovery for the long haul.
Thanks, Art, for sharing your thoughts. Just one final question to you. Since you're saying that you want to be ready when things get normal, when it is ready, when we want to travel to, when others want to travel to Philippines, tell us, what places should they not miss out, as a destination. Now, I have of course been many times, gone around Philippines with you as well. Uh,
That's right.
Maybe, I know that you can probably talk for hours about where to go in Philippines, but in short,
You're right.
uh,
7,300 plus islands, and but we have our really destinations that have been very well received and popular among our markets. Ranges from, of course, Boracay to Palawan to Cebu to Bohol, Siargao in northeastern Mindanao, which is like the um, surfing destination, even our mountain destinations all the way to
mhm,
Baguio and Benguet. We still have those ready for tourism. I'm saying those destinations because they have the right infrastructure, they
mhm.
have the stakeholders, business stakeholders waiting for travelers again. And I think those destinations will have to also lead us. Like, of course, you've been to Davao. Davao is and Samal Island and in several parts of Mindanao, Visayas, and Luzon. I can talk, as you've said, for hours about our destinations. But one good thing about this is that when they come, because all of these destinations and natural sites and attractions have rested for 3 months, so the air is fresher, the water is more pristine, and people now will not crowd. So I guess it's a beautiful scenario to think about. So start
Right.
planning your trip to the Philippines.
So
Thank you,
much.
Fazal. Thank you, Fazal, for this opportunity to chat. And as you already experienced, every time you're in town, we take care of you. So come back, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Well, that's it for today. Thanks for watching CR Talks. In the next episodes, we will be talking to more travel industry stakeholders on how they are overcoming challenges to rebuild the travel industry. So join us on our next episodes. Until then, goodbye.